So now, if you are working with an individual that has low back pain that's bad enough, right, and all else fails, meaning that I couldn't modify my squat, I couldn't modify my deadlift, every single thing we tried was just super painful. How do you work with those athletes? All right. So for one, and I already said this, make sure you refer out. Make sure that they go to someone who can actually evaluate them, come up with a diagnosis, and help you with this process. But some things that can be helpful for these athletes, it tends not to bug them when they have low back pain that's pretty severe, are single-legged strength training exercises. So let's say the workout of the day is going to require you to do some squatting, but squatting is just not happening, right? Maybe you substitute a lunge variation or a step-up variation or some sort of single-legged deadlift variation into the program. A lot of times single leg exercises do not bother the spine as much as a double leg exercise. Okay, you've got two legs and you've got one spine, so in a squat or a deadlift, a lot of times the limiting factor is the spine. And a single-legged exercise, usually one leg is a limiting factor, so the spine just isn't taking as much stress. All right. The next thing that can be helpful for these folks are different carry variations. So farmers carry, a front rack carry with kettlebells, carrying a yoke can give you a nice strong training stimulus to the spine and some of the muscles that surround the spine without actually putting you in a position that irritates things. This is me over to the right. What I'm doing is a farmer's march. So I'm slowly marching across the ground here with dumbbells in my hand, and I'm getting a nice strong training stimulus to my hips and my core without actually irritating things, right? It's a great exercise to try if you haven't tried it. The last exercise, it seems to be tolerated pretty well. Individuals with low back pain are going to be hip thrusts. So lying on your back, knees bent, barbell across your waist, and thrusting up into the air. And these can be done with either one leg at a time or two legs at a time. But the thing is, they tend not to stress the spine too much, so you can get a nice training effect of the hip musculature without actually irritating things in the spine. All right. So a couple things you can try when the pain is pretty bad. So when people have some sort of low back issue, especially if it's chronic in nature, so you'll probably work with a few individuals that their back kind of hurts most of the time, right? It doesn't really feel phenomenal. Or maybe you've worked with a few athletes that have just injured their back, right? And they're looking for some extra exercises that can maybe help them out a little bit. You can do some core work. Now, I'm not asking you to be physical therapists, guys. I don't think that's your role, but I think it can really help out if someone has some back pain and you just give them a few accessory exercises to get them back to training. So what do I mean by core work? Well, anything that trains either the stomach musculature on the front, the sides, or the lower back musculature on the back, as well as the hips, all of that is kind of core, right? So what are some good ideas? Obviously, different plank variations. So on the front, obviously on the side, you can do things like ab wheels, Absol, any of that stuff is fair game, right? Crawl variations I love. Here's me crawling around the floor. So basically a crawl is like a moving plank, right? I like to give the cue to my athletes, pretend like there's a glass of water on your lower back and you're trying not to let it spill. So as you're crawling forward or backwards, we're just keeping the lower back controlled and improving the stability within the core, right? Back extensions are also phenomenal. They're going to help to strengthen the lower back musculature, and they can really help a bunch with people that have spine problems. Other core work that I like a lot is strengthening the core from the side. We already mentioned it, but things like side bridges are great. I love pillar holds, which is basically you get in a GHD machine facing sideways. So you're holding straight to the side, and all the muscles on the side of your core as well as the hip are firing like crazy. Next are Pallof press, or also known as anti-rotation press. So you have a band attached to something stable, you walk out to the side, and then hold either a tall kneeling, half kneeling, just squat position, press the band out. The further out you press, the more the core has to work to keep you from rotating to the side. It's an excellent exercise, And the other thing you can work on is basic lower back strengthening and glute strengthening. We already mentioned the back extensions on a GHD, but exercises like good mornings and RDLs strengthen the crap out of the spine. They're just phenomenal exercises for the core, as well as hip thrusts, like I spoke about before. Great exercise to strengthen the hips, which can help a lot for these folks, and it doesn't necessarily stress the spine too much.